Welcome to a new episode of the Advancing Consciousness series with Franco Di Nicola. This is a place where people can come to gain further insight and clarity as to what is going on and how we can shift things on a personal and global level, while also accessing higher levels of consciousness and awareness. We bring this series to you free of charge so that many are able to access this information. However, if you resonate with what Franco shares and you would like to support his work, contributions are welcomed and greatly appreciated. A link is in the description and will be provided in the chat if you feel guided to do so. Also, we have many previous workshops, such as a couple of our most recent, Maneuvering with Neutrality and Alignment during this next wave of unfoldments, and Deprogram Clearing Empowerment Workshop. You could also join us in our membership program, Let's Talk About You, where like-minded people come together bi-weekly to talk about the topics requiring deeper understanding and clarity. All of these are available on Teachable, and we encourage you to check them out as they are great resources at very affordable prices to assist in better understanding this human experience. The Teachable link will also be provided in the chat and description. And lastly, don't forget to share. As the more of us coming together and creating a shift in oneself, the more effective it'll be to shift things globally. Thank you for joining us and being part of the change. Enjoy today's broadcast.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Advancing Consciousness series, and today we're doing episode 71, and we're going to get to play with moving beyond the narrative to experience real change. So again, every time that we put an episode together, it is always exactly where everybody is at this point in time and what will aid you in one way or another to support you, in a sense, to move you forward in a bigger way. And a lot of times we address some of the obstacles that we are running into. And right now we're running into some obstacles ourselves because, we're surrounded by a lot of information right now, what we call narrative agendas and so forth from the mainstream, and also much is coming through all the different other outlets that are presenting to us, and including people communicating with each other and kind of reinforcing the old narratives. Of course, the narratives of, what's happening in each other's countries, the looming of certain things, the virus sort of thing, and the vax and everything else that's part and parcel at one point or another. All of that is coming to play. Also, a lot of the construct of the old way of survival and so forth is being really directed in a very powerful way. So when we're looking at that right now, we want to get a deeper understanding of what's really going on. Okay, so let me just shift this over. All right, we'll get to play with, whoops. There we go. Wow, it gets pretty small when it gets over there. All right. Okay, so with everything that's going on right now, there's a lot of distraction. There's a lot of a shift in focus. And the focus is on what's going on. Now, I know I've been talking about it, not only in the workshop. By the way, if you missed it, the link is in the description for you able to access the video and audio recordings. They're all available now, packaged and ready for you. And but anyways, we talked about it in the workshop. We talked about it in many other episodes along the way, that if we're to create a brand new reality, to shift our own personal reality and the world, we really have to put our focus and attention somewhere else than what is being reflected on a collective scale worldwide. Also, the fact of everything that's coming in. So it becomes really that we have to be quite diligent in kind of filtering out what is coming through us, through social media, through the media, through other forms of broadcasting, through others, people that are communicating with us. And a lot of us are with family, friends, and so forth. And co-workers or whoever else that are still very much focused on that older world. So there's a lot of reinforcement of the old versus the new. So where's the reliance? Well, yes, we're talking about it right now. There are other alternative medias, I guess, at some point or another that are advancing or providing higher consciousness at this point in time, at least the triggering of that remembering. But a lot of even the alternative stuff has very much still entangled in the polarity game. Right, wrong, good, bad, who to blame, who's the victim, who's the victimizer, and so forth. And the fact of seeing everything as bad. So if you're seeing something as wrong, something that needs to be fixed, something that we have to put a lot of force, time, energy in, and the fact that it's not going to change very easily, guess what? If we're putting a lot of focus, attention, and so forth, it is altering our energy, our possibilities, our collaboration with higher order states of ourselves. So in essence, it's going to make the movement forward through change slower and also more laborful. So right now, what are we looking at? We have to go back into connecting with ourselves and spending time with ourselves, and meaning going into that quiet state, and also going to the point where you're not giving attention to the ego, because the ego is an artificial intelligence that very much reflects that inverted world, that old world that we are moving through. I know we've talked about the new world is here. We have the 2 brand new platforms that we're going through a purging process and all of that. But to expedite things further and to enhance our timeline, because the thing is, the timeline is set in such a fashion where everything is flexible. It can speed up, slow down, it can put obstacles, or it can actually create openings. But we are the ones that are doing so. Now, there's a lot of emphasis to kind of put obstacles in our timeline, our personal and collective timeline. So in saying in a sense, instead of moving with ease, it makes it look like it's got to be more difficult, and then there are delays. I know a lot of people are asking at this point in time, and have been asking for a while now, when is this all going to change? When is this all going to end? When are we going to step in and be able to experience this new world? But the point is, this is a dance that we have created in such a fashion, giving us the opportunity to become empowered, an opportunity to become that creator, conscious creator, because we are always a creator and manifester and so forth. But a lot of it is done subconsciously or unconsciously, and then some of the more key stuff is done on a superconscious level, but we're not consciously aware of it. So, but the thing is, the conscious part, which is the part that actually entangles or basically involves the playground and how we see it and experience it, is where we have to step into to be able to navigate much more effectively. And that way we actually become empowered. And as we become empowered from that higher conscious state, anything that is a reflection of the old tends to lose its capacity and power, which we can call the ego, and also the artificial intelligence related to that ego operating system. But it's not only the ego, but it also shifts us away from all the other narratives that are being projected forward. So when we're looking at moving, let's move this, moving beyond the narrative, oops, wrong button, there we go. Moving beyond the narrative to experience real change cannot be experienced until we step out of the narrative. What is right now playing out? Now, we're not here to demonize what we're experiencing on the playground right now. This is very instrumental for all of us. Instrumental for us to be able to reach a saturation point, and also at the same time to be able to get to a point where we see that we are now to step forward in a powerful way and take an active role in shifting what we are experiencing and what we call reality currently. So back to what I was saying, a lot of people want to see how quickly things are going to change. When are we going to start to experience this new world, when we don't have to be in polarization, when we don't have to be in suffering, where we don't have to be in survival, and so forth. But it's really us, okay? That's going to change that. I know it can seem overwhelming. A lot of times people say, well, it's just me or a small group of us, and how do we change this? Well, believe it or not, we are a key instrument in all of that, because you need those key people in all over the world that are kind of becoming more conscious of their essence and taking an active role. And it doesn't have to have the numbers where it has to override the existing number of the playmates that are on the planet. Because you have to remember, 63% of the playmates on the planet are just there as extras to play and support whatever we are projecting. Okay? So there are the 2.6, 2.7 billion people that are already engaging and starting to maneuver through what we call the organic 3D, which is not the reflection of the inverted 3D, 2D, 1D thing. And then there's the 5.5 million, 550 million that are already reflecting that organic 5D. But are they clear with that? No. This is the process we're going through. The process is to purge the rest of it. Doesn't matter if you're an organic 5D, organic 3D, we still have, all of us, to some degree or another, and some deeper than others, the old world that we've been observing, and the old world that we are still observing. We still have our stories, programs, perception, belief systems, and so forth, and conditioning and patterns and a response and so forth. They're all related in that inverted matrix, inverted 3D, 2D, and so forth, that we are purging. We're also taking out all the definitions and labels of ourselves. So we're kind of losing those other versions of ourselves. And what I mean by those other versions is the perceived label and role that's been applied to it, saying, this is me. And we have many of this is me, this is me, this is me. And those are the parts that are dissolving, because those me's are all me's that were created in this old world. And allowing the true you that's unlabeled, undefined, as the pure potentiality in a beautiful expression in a human form that is actually emerging, that actually is very reflective of your true design, blueprint, nature, whatever you want to call it, which basically most aligns with what we experience as the planet, as Gaia, which is a sentient being that communicates in everything on the planet, and we are part of that, but we're also multidimensional in combination and otherwise. So for us to really experience this, it does not need the massive amount of numbers, but many of us are coming more and more on board as we go through the purging and crystallization and clarification and really stimulating, turning ourselves on to our true nature. And in doing so, we now transmit in a very powerful way using really high vibrational frequency, higher states of consciousness, and utilizing brighter, more powerful spectrums of your whole self, or spectrums of light, which is creator essence. So in fact, you're purifying your spirit of creation, or the spirit of sourceness that you are. You were going to say something?
Question.
Okay.
Jen is asking, I have such problems with obstacles. The more I focus on consciousness, the obstacles are becoming enticing. When it comes to doing the processes regularly, my mind just conveniently forgets.
Okay. This is why it's so important to write it down, because when you're doing the process, and then after, take notes and remind yourself of the notes. Now, the obstacles that are coming up are just old programs, patterns, and so forth that are making themselves known to show you that they're still active. They still have an importance. They still define you. They still label you, and they still keep you in a certain vibrational pattern. So as it comes up, you want to acknowledge what those obstacles are. As enticing as it may be, write it out, what it is. And then ask yourself, what is so enticing about it? What do I get out of it? How do I feel after or before, and so forth? You want to spend the time to be able to label it. But then you have to go through the appreciation part, where you acknowledge all of those things that you're seeing and appreciate every part of it. When we're talking about appreciation, it's not just I appreciate it and I thank you. You write down why you thank it, what is provided for you, what experience. And there's no right, wrong, good, bad about any polarized experience or any experience at this point in time. So when you can find as many reasons to appreciate it and then be in a state of love with it, then of course it will dissolve and they will have less and less power over you. Go ahead.
Jane is asking, Franco, please explain the active role you mentioned earlier. Please give examples if possible.
Active role in which way?
I'm not sure. Maybe as in regards to active role in...
Oh, okay. Okay. So what I mean by active role at this point in time is basically start to live it, breathe it, and experience it within yourself. It's great to have it in your mind and your envision, but also start to shape your life. Even if it seems as small as a small little step, see it in your life. Start to set up your life that is reflective of that state. That takes an active role. Now, at some point, your active role may be engaging with others and in a sharing with no expectations whatsoever that they will accept it or not, but you share it. That will also allow bringing other people together if you feel so guided to create a little community or a little group where you're now taking active of reaching out to more people, allowing other people to understand what is the real operating system and how things are going through your own realization, through your own experience, and so forth. So the active starts with us. Active of the first part of the active is recognizing, like the other example, your obstacles, looking at what the obstacles there. That's one step. And then writing out the obstacles and working with the obstacles so that you dissolve the obstacles. Then when you dissolve the obstacle, you now can go further and be able to advance in your accessibility. Then use your imagination, your creativity, and so forth to map out some of the things that you now see that's coming from within you that you want to bring forth as an expression of life, and then start shaping certain things in your life so that it is much more, or at least it's a reinforced reflection of what you see life is. And you can start as small as it feels comfortable and then expand from there. And then, like I said, you can share it with others on a bigger way. Go ahead.
Okay. This is another question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Are fully awakened source players with multidimensional souls able and permitted to reprogram the 63%? Do these other versions of ourselves have the same free will contract when they come into the hologram as the star-seated source players? There's more to it. Are we anyway reprogramming them indirectly as we radiate our multi-dimensional consciousness? Lastly, are they programmed by the OP system? I'm not sure what. So why cannot we reprogram that way too, by reprogramming the operation system? I'm thinking that's what that means.
Okay. Well, the 63% are basically there at this point in time that don't bring in all the multi-dimensional components. Now, the 63% have an extension of Gaia in physical form and has the innate consciousness of physical form. It may be reduced because of the fact that it doesn't allow it through its own experience, but as much as it doesn't have an individualized, signatured human entity, it is collected to the collective human entity. So in fact, it has a large resource, but it may use it to the degree that is flexible. That means if it's interacting with you per se, and you have a signatured human entity, your human entity will communicate with that human entity and create a platform of exchange or experience that would basically assist you to move forward in a powerful way. So they, in fact, they're a facilitator. Now, since they don't have an individualized signature multidimensional soul, they're also connected to a collective soul. And that particular soul will, even though it's running several, will also make arrangements so that your multidimensional aspect of yourself can communicate with them and then can bring in or play out a role that will advance or assist that multidimensional part of yourself. In regards to free will, of course, everything has free will at this point in time. It can't be removed no matter what level. However, the free will is, I want to be of service, and I want to be of service for the active at this point in time. It has the choice to come and go, do whatever it needs to do at any point in time. Now, are we programming it? In effect, yes. Why? Because they're connected to the collective human entity, collective in multidimensional soul. So everything that we are personally experiencing, every level that we achieve in our own personal experience, and then others around collectively, is also upgrading them. So now they may choose to play in a very low vibrational frequency with very minimal consciousness for a period of time, but once more of it is stimulated, they can actually elevate. Now, if it gets elevated and they're in local spots and they're very useful, then a human personalized, or what we call specific signature type human entity, and a multidimensional personal signatured or coded multidimensional soul can also embody that physicality, and that physicality now becomes an active physicality. And when I say active, meaning that it goes through a personalized evolution along with the collective. So it's all there and available. So nothing's determined in each of the 63% of the extras at this point in time, what they will do once we go through different processes. Right now, the key instrument is we hold. Yes, we can hold polarity. Yes, we can play various roles to stimulate. And you have to understand there's a lot of things going on the planet right now that are stimulating massive polarity, massive restriction, massive victimization, and others. And that's how it presents. But it's also to really, the purpose behind that is for not only getting the saturation, but to step into that empowered state and say, okay, thank you for your assistance. Thank you for playing out that role. Thank you for playing what looks like an unconscious, lower vibrational, polarized state, but we are now moving forward. Now, we're moving forward anyways. All the energies are supporting us, and these energies that are coming in are also upgrading every facet of it. So even the lowest frequency and the ones that participated in the lowest frequency have been even if they're coming from other planets or whatever it is, that they have been in a position where they self-purge, leaving the planet and so forth, because their role is no longer supported and the energies are increasing anyways. Go ahead.
Does the 63% have a connection to source?
Everything is source. Everything is source. Nothing is outside of source. There's two parts to us. There is source, which is the base of everything that exists. Then there is the spirit of source, which is source that has created a version of itself within itself called the spirit, and that is a source in creation. That means it's source in creating and taking on roles and playing. So all of us on the planet, every single sentient being, and anything that reflects as real or solid or plays any particular role at this point in time is all spirit in action. It's all spirit, source, or source in its spirit state, creating environments, opportunities to play. Now, this is why we say we connect with our spirit, which is our creator part, our creator essence. But we are still source, and everything is source. So it's not outside of source. It cannot exist. Nothing exists outside of source because it is what actually holds everything together, and it is the same material made for all of it. And when you were looking at the extras, they're still an extension of Gaia, and Gaia is source. I mean, it's all related into that. So that's how it all works in that level. So whatever we are doing on a personal basis at this point in time, in any which way, and then also by coming together with others, we're dramatically impacting things at this point. So the key here, the point is for us to move beyond it and really experience change, we need to take the focus away from the narrative. That means you're looking at the world and it is just the background, it is just the dance in the movie. And now it's up to you to decide how you want to interact and play within all of that without getting lost or engaging in the fact of what's there. Because it's so alluring and so distracting right now to look at what's going on and use that as a measure. Okay? That measure is really not to be focused on. You can take a glimpse of it just to see how it's shaping and shifting, but you don't use that as a measure of progress or non-progress, because everything that we're already doing starts off on the back end. It's already changing the construct. And that construct, you have to understand, if you're looking at the movie, say that this is the main screen, okay? Everything that we're doing is changing the main screen. The main movie. But what's happening is what we're looking at has different layers of screen. So if we're looking at this, because this is all we're seeing, because most of us, depending on what frequency you're in, what your conscious awareness and how many things that are impeding us, we'll be able to see it, the different layers. Now, if you can see this layer, you could see all of that is changing. But if you're looking at this layer, this layer, this layer, each one has different gradients of change. Okay? As you notice, some of you have become more conscious. And what are you doing? You're noticing that the game is the game, but you also see something else happening in the game. You see people changing. You get to notice some other people are shifting away from what we call the narrative or the agenda, are researching before taking actions and so forth. They're coming together to stimulate their own knowing through content of this nature or other content at this point in time. And you can see, so what's happening is that they already bypassed this. They're already looking at, and they're looking at this level. Okay, this level, because this shows minimal change, which most of the people are in. This shows more change, that shows more change, and this shows even a grander change because this is already changing along the way. What do I mean changing? It is upgrading. It's more reflective of the organic 3D and 5D, but it's also showing that the mechanics, the base, the foundations is shifting. So that even the characters that are more focused than any of these don't carry the same impact or value. You could see them as just the players in the game, the puppets, or whatever you want to call it. It's just a name, but just the players without getting lost in it. Go ahead.
Couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
Natalie's asking, how do we know if we're locked in at 3D organic consciousness and no longer playing in the 63% realm?
Well, if you're even asking the question and you're paying attention to what we're paying attention right now, you're out of there, okay? So if you're part of the 63, you're basically, your consciousness or access to consciousness is very minimal. You follow, what you really follow, you're just following what is projected on the screen as your way of life. That means you're looking at this screen, and this screen defines everything. defines where you're at, defines how things are going, and you actually do not even question anything. You don't even go beyond any part of it, that you will play the role and following every instruction that is coming from the narrative, from the mainstream, from any other sources, and not only question, not even open to have a discussion with anybody else. Now, you have to understand that at the same time, some are focused here and they have agreed to stay there for a period of time to help their playmates around them. Could be family, could be partnerships, could be whatever. And then flip and skip from this to seeing even further fairly quickly once their role is finished. So you can't really define it. But when we're talking about if you're not open to anything at this point in time, and you're basically, see, the other thing you could look at too is that you will feel empty inside. The person will feel empty. You look in their eyes, there's like nothing in there. The spirit of essence is very low, because it has to have spirit of essence anyways, but it's not embodied. You don't see a very specific active human entity and active soul, multidimensional soul within it. So, sometimes you look in people's eyes and you see them that they're empty inside. So in a sense, that would be the reflective of the 63%. But the 63% can change along the way. Go ahead.
Another question from Savannah.
Mm-hmm.
The narrative I noticed myself caught up with is the vaccine passport.
Right.
California will vote on it at the end of April, and it does seem very disempowering. Any suggestions how to be with that narrative and not give it power?
Well, the thing is, we have to understand we're testing ourselves to a certain degree. Okay? What are we doing? We're looking at what's going on and we're staging it. The players are staging this whole passport thing, for example, to bring up what? Feeling that in one way we're disempowered. In one way it will limit our experience. Excuse me. To reflect that old version or that old world, in a sense. Now, what you do at this point in time, you say, okay, well, you want to play with the passport. I'm not supporting it. You're not going to fight it, but you're also going to see within yourself, using your imagination and so forth, that the passport doesn't even exist. It's not even an issue. It's not even a story. It's not even real, in a sense. And you start living it that way. And everybody says, what do you think of the passport? And I go, well, it doesn't exist in my realm. That's it. And what happens at that point, you're also streaming in, say, California or wherever you are, that acknowledgement, that vibrational frequency saying, I am not participating, I'm not supporting it. And even though we're not going to be in when I call non-supporting, where you're judgmental or combative or combative or resistant to it, you're basically seeing it as, yeah, it doesn't even exist in my realm or whatever it is. Now, what you're going to end up doing is you set up your life so that it does not become part of your experience. Because what happens is, if the action of that passport is here and you're looking at this, these two layers here do not interfere with you. They don't actually see you. Now, if you get glimpse of it here and there, it really is not part of you. By focusing here or even going further at some point, you're already changing the dynamics. If it comes to a point where the collective in that area is really supporting this and wants to drag anybody in where the passports are, then you may choose to move, okay, because you don't want to be there. It's like a tsunami is coming in or an earthquake or anything of that nature, and say, well, I have the option to stay here or not. You could stay there and not be harmed, if you want to call it that. You can stay there and say, well, I'm not going to let it bother me and whatever it is. And that's okay, because you can. You live an alternate layer of the movie in California, for example, or wherever you are. But at the same time, it may be that there's such a resistance and there's many that need to push it to that far, that at this point in time, they'd say, okay, great. Guess what? I don't want to play here, so I'm going to move somewhere else where that's not being mandated to the same degree. That's an option you'll make as time comes along. As you're moving along, you'll see where it would best serve you. So you have to understand, there's so much going on that even the narrative of saying we're going to have a passport by the end of April, or we're going to vote by the end of April, within that 30 days or whatever it is, 32 days or whatever amount of days, there is so much going to occur with all of us, with the changing and so forth, that would even dissolve if it does not serve in any way, shape, or form. And if it still serves for a mass at that point in time, it will play out there, but you don't have to see or engage in that layer, or the fact you may choose to leave that layer that's there at that time. But you cannot, you could say, well, okay, do I have an exit plan? You could say, well, this is the potentiality that we may want to leave if that is mandatory, but don't give it any power in the sense where I'm going to, at this point, look at seeing it without there. Because as you're doing that, you're very powerfully, and many other people around the world are very powerfully already eroding, dissolving those structures and the control structures, because nothing can be mandated. You have to understand that this applies to anything. Doesn't matter if it's a passport, if it's any rules, any laws, any authority figure or anything of that nature, any self-assigned leader or anything like that. That is all fake. It's all facade. Nothing has power over you. However, we got convinced that individuals have power, that they can mandate or whatever it is. And yes, a lot of the playmates that are supporting it believe that. But when you really look at it, we're all equal. No one has power over you. No one has any rights whatsoever. Nobody can infringe free will. And that is agreed upon and understood. But we can get to the point where we want to receive instructions to shape our free will accordingly and say, okay, I'm going to play the game. But it's you that decides to do that. So the thing is, the focus is seeing that it's not there, not as a main focus, but living and expressing and experiencing and feeling the freedom that goes beyond what it was before this COVID thing came even about. None of that is going to, you're living it way beyond that, because even though we thought we had freedom, we are even freer than that, because that was still a restriction. Now the restriction, of course, intensified even further. So I would say at this point is whatever the narrative is offering you and sharing with you and projecting to you, you can smile and laugh and I go, I see you, I thank you for the role, I thank you for all the people that it's playing out for, but I also love you and free you, you know. And that's the thing. The more you do that, then none of that will come into play. And many of you have had the experience when you're not in fear, when you're not engaged in all of that, that you become invisible in a fact where, you know, you could still mingle and you're not noticing because you're in this frequency and these two frequencies cannot see you, cannot interact with you or anything of that nature. However, if we get triggered and we shift our frequency, lower our frequency, then we can be spotted through there. So if we have fear, that's what ends up playing. Were you going to say something? Or no.
There's a question.
Okay, go ahead.
There was a couple questions too. I had to pause them and so just let people know. So we stay on topic.
Okay.
So we're gonna at some point have a Q&A, maybe soon, maybe even the next one next Tuesday, just so people who have questions that maybe are not in regards to this direct topic, but still have questions, we can go through them.
Okay.
So I'll read this one here.
It's related?
It's about 5D.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. In a recent talk, you mentioned very briefly that once 5D organic is stabilized around 2040, there will obviously be continuing work in higher dimensions beyond the fifth. Access the word you use. Is this work going to be as hard as it has been to access 5D from inverted 1, 2, and 3? Or is this only due to the nature of inverted program? How does this access look
it's going to be
the one we have now? Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot easier because at that point in time, there's a unification of everybody in that fifth dimensional consciousness. Because once we're into 2035, first of all, once we're into 2023, if everything stays the way it is, and we're not going to delay anything of that nature, by the time we enter 2023, we've already purged a tremendous amount of the inverted world, inverted aspect of ourselves, the inverted 3D, 2D, 1D type of thing, so that you're either working in our organic 3D and organic 5D with accessibility higher dimensions. The organic 3D has only until 2035 to end up completing its capacities to play in that playground. Because at that point, guess what? Then you get the opportunity to basically, or not even so much the opportunity, because you have the opportunity at any point in time from now till 2035. But the cutoff point is at 2035 that the organic 3D no longer will exist. That platform will merge with organic 5D, and that will be the base. So it usually takes about a few years, say 5 years at this point in time, for a balancing integration in full 5D consciousness as a baseline while we're accessing 6th and 7th and 8th as just the plug-in into the 5th. Is it going to be? No, because the thing is, we went from organic to inorganic. We went from organic to completely reversed, or in this inverted world. And the inverted world was very powerfully enforced. And now we've identified with that so much. We have a history around that, and it's been difficult. Now, many of us have already made a lot of changes and so forth, and have been purging that. But many of us are still very much attached to that inverted world, inverted 3D, 2D, because we have a lot of invested energy, time, and training and programming and patterns in there. So this is why it's more difficult. Then the other part of it is the reason we didn't just shift into fifth dimensional consciousness is because there are many, many different physicalities, human entities, and souls that basically said we never really got to experience organic 3D, even though the organic 3D was here 10,000, 15,000 years ago for a 5,000 year period. We're very different now, but we did have 10,000 years of that inverted world. We want to get a taste of an embodiment where we can really get intimate with our bodies in the sense of being very more connected and nurtured by the sensorial component, not in the same way we played in the inverted 3D where we had all this fragmentation, isolation, but more of a holistic version of it, with also the acknowledgement that you are spirit, the acknowledgement that you're a multidimensional being, acknowledgement that you're source. So you have that, but the focus is on the physical expression. When we're going into organic 5D, that's a different story, because now we're putting more focus in how we can utilize our spirit creation to be able to experience itself in physical form. But the main mandate is not the physical form, even though it is a major part of it, but it's not the only focus. The focus is more bringing the multidimensional, the spirit essence of itself in the physical form. Go ahead.
Can you just quickly just tell what the difference between organic and non-organic is? 3D, 5D? Someone's just asking.
Okay.
So just quickly.
Yeah. Organic, what we're talking about, what organic is. Organic is the original design blueprint that was done when planet Earth was retooled and when their physical forms were put to place. So, when it was retooled, every time the planet is retooled, there is the matrix, which is the main operating system that allows us to experience Earth looking a certain way, feeling a certain way, and to interact a certain way, and also to create a feedback and create a platform for us to experience ourselves. There's a new organic, self-evolving matrix that is interconnected with all of the so-called other planets within not only our solar system, galaxy, and universe. And there's an exchange of communication. Any advancement is made that is received. So that's the organic. So when the human form was created, and it was, in a sense, it came in with an organic 3D operating system, which was its true, pure design, blueprint, and so forth, and its capacities and capabilities. At that point, we did not need to eat. The environment responded with us. Our energies came from our environment and so forth. There was a lot of different things, so it was very natural. When the inverted was introduced 10,000 years ago, then everything went in reverse. So we went from organic, our natural design, the original design that was self-evolving, to going into the inorganic, basically going into something that was in reverse. So that's why we went from organic 3D to inverted 3D, inverted 2D and 1D. And that means that the world was totally opposite. And instead of evolving, we devolved. So, and then when we devolved, we got stuck in that unevolved or lower evolved state. That's basically it. Okay? Mm-hmm. Good. All right. I guess I should get started.
Yes.
So moving beyond the narrative to experience real change. So as you understand, we need to move beyond that. So, oops, yes. I'm going to take my layers out. There we go. All right. If we make all the projected narratives a reference for us to move forward, we will continue to give life to the old world, and actual change will be slowed down. So basically what we're looking at is if we're using everything that's playing out as a reference point and our focus, like I was saying earlier, then it's going to slow things down. A lot of people are getting into the kind of wait and see. Okay, and I see it even with a lot of the stuff I'm putting out there. Oh, when's the next change? When is this all going to end? Even today, well, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Well, the thing is, all we know is that we're going through stages of changes. What we do along the way is up to us. We are already kind of mapped out a kind of a game plan, but the game plan depends on how we play the game, how involved we get into the game, how active we get into the game. If we're going to put a lot of attention in the old world and wait and see, it's not going to change. And the wait and see is not going to let us address the old version of ourselves, the old world that's reflecting in ourselves. We won't see it. We won't be experiencing the changes within ourselves. Now, the caveat in all of this is that we are being bombarded with really strong energies. First and foremost, Gaia is increasing in its frequency, okay? Which is not creating a supportive stage for very low vibrational frequencies. So it is increasing. And as it's increasing, it's stimulating us. It's stimulating us to bring all of these lower energies to the surface so we can experience it emotionally, physically, and also in our consciousness so that we can purge it. The crystal within the center of the earth is also beaming much more clearly, a lot more stronger, and it is less shielded by, and that is very reflective of the organic 5D. Plus, the sun's frequency, spectrum of light, and source spirit essence that actually fuels changes, not only in our state, but also our body changes, and also our sentient beings that are involved with us is also being stimulated. We're also getting direct energies that are coming from the galaxy itself. So not only within our solar system being the sun, but also the planets associated within our solar system. But we're getting a very strong blast also from the center of our galaxy, which is a makeup of a lot of different solar systems. And they're all sharing these really high vibrational frequencies. And what's happening, it's actually creating a very powerful purging. It's actually changing the dynamics and design of our body. It's bringing it back online with its upgrades. So a lot of this stuff is being pushed. This is why people are feeling very symptomatic intensities physically, emotionally, old stories, programs, and belief systems that we thought we even took care of and whatever else, or going even deeper is all coming to the surface. Because really, to sit on your butt and wait is really not the agreed point that we want to do. So you can slow it down absolutely by, waiting, but the thing is, there's nothing to wait. If we're going to be waiting, we're going to slow things down. If we're going to look at the world to say, okay, that tells me how much progress we made, it's going to slow this down. So this is why it's really, really, really important for us to use our imagination, our creativity, to go from that, what we talked about, manifestation, which is basically recreating what already exists, to creation. Creation is creating something brand new, more advanced than ever before. And that is the start of it, because that's the seed. It's like every time you reach an imagination, and the imagination and using that creative part of the imagination, where we're not looking at, oh, how a better version of what we already had, but to see a version that is more reflective and natural to you, then you're seeding it, and you're also changing the dynamics of so forth. So it really depends on us, because we're the only ones that can actually slow it down. And many of us have been slowing it down and then just sitting in the back end. But the thing is, what the most crucial slowdown is your slowdown. The collective slowdown will slow down too, but not to the degree as personally. That's why it always goes back to work personally on yourself. That is, any story, any program, any perception, belief system, and so forth that comes up through any triggering, playing with other playmates, or anything else that you're being stimulated to come to the surface, it is key to stay focused on it. I know it can feel disappointing and feel in one way or another, it's like this is too much, overwhelming. Remember, the ego loves to hear that. The ego is, most of the time, is the one that is projecting that idea. This is too much work. Oh, we failed because I took care of it and it's back here again. How long is it going to be? How deep is this bag? How deep is this hole? I can't do this. This is too much. Well, that's just the ego saying that. It's not you. In what we call the collective consciousness, but at the collective consciousness, you may be experiencing that. So as long as we keep focusing on the old projected narrative, and it is projected, because if you see it, what are we looking at? First, the reflection around the world that is coming in, but it's all the media, all the resources, that we're focusing. Just pay attention. Is this reflecting who I am, or higher consciousness, or is this reflecting the old? By being attentive to it and noticing it, then you can be selective. You can be discerning where you put your attention in. The ego is going to want you to say, oh, we need to pay attention to this. We need to know what's going on in the world. Well, you could say, well, I can get a little glimpse of it, but really I'm not going to immerse myself in it because I want to be that higher state that I am and really look at that part and not use that as our guiding point. Okay, so here it is. Who's looking at all the narratives and why? Who is looking? Is it you? It's the ego. The ego looks at the narrative because the ego knows that as long as you're focused in the narrative, it is a reflection of what its operating system is designed. So, when we're looking at why are we looking at the narrative, why we're giving realism to the narrative, why are we saying the narrative is the part that dictates how we feel and what's going on and so forth, and it's important for us to fear, it's important for us to focus on this, it's important for us to hear everything that's going on. Why? Why? Do we focus on the narrative? Because the ego says, hey, wait a minute. My job is to keep you in the old world. My job is to keep you in the inverted world. So if we're focusing on the narrative, everything that we're looking around us is reflecting that old world, then we can stay and continue to swim in there. We can continue to play there. We can continue to give it power. We can make it more real or stay real. And then when we're real, guess what? Then what do we have? We have our old versions of ourselves created from that, active, fully in line, full gusto. Let's go play. So that's who's looking. It's not your higher self. Your body does not really care because it has that innate higher consciousness and knows that it's in charge of how it designs, and it has a very reflective, strong input from Gaia's progress because you're part of it. Your human entity has played this game and says, hey, we're moving forward one way or another. So it's not really paying attention to it. It doesn't really care. And your multidimensional aspect is really on board to move things forward. So the only part that's going to put a lot of attention is what we call the ego, artificial intelligence. You know, we hear a lot about this artificial intelligence. We've had this artificial intelligence we call the ego for 10,000 years, and it has evolved. Now it's losing its grip. Yes, now it's starting to short circuit. Now it's no longer supported because it doesn't have a transmitter. The inverted matrix has been removed and so forth. So it highly relies on, if anything, the reliance is on the narrative, what is being seen in the screen, and trying to keep that alive. Not only what's in the screen, what is also being projected from the mass media and so forth, and anything, any reference of the old world. If you're referring to the old world, it's the ego that's saying, hey, that's important because we went through trauma. We had this happen to us. We have, you know, this is who we are and so forth. And you know, that's where it's going to go. Go ahead.
Okay, Belinda's asking, why with us being holographic entities, why would we need to still be looking so far ahead into the future? Time has sped up so much, yet we are still living in the projected narrative. Even those of us who disconnected from the projected narrative years ago, is it still because of fear?
Ego looks into the future based on the past. Past-based, but it doesn't even stop there. Yes, you're right. This thing called fear all resides from this, and it's a control structure. Why do we have so much fear perpetuated? First, we create a narrative, a storyline of some sort that this boogeyman, this or that is there. Then scare the heebie-jeebies out of you. Put a lot of attention, focus, and so forth on the fear. Because what happens to fear? When you're experiencing fear, it reduces your vibration, reduces your access of consciousness. It actually paints the picture that it wants to hold on to the narrative because that is the only tangible results or tangible support that we have. That's where it puts its attention. This operating system, it loves to use fear. And of course, it bases it on the past to always project the future. What does it say? The future's dangerous. The future's unknown. We got to prepare for the future. Based on what? Based on our old? Yes. This happened before. We need to be prepared. Even these economists and everybody else that's going, okay, we follow the trends. Yes, some of those trends are still existing. Yes, they may still be active because we're still having purged from it. But you can't rely on it and say, oh, we're just going to continue these patterns. Well, there's a disrupt in the patterns. Who's disrupting it? You are. All of us are. We're disrupting it by the changes that we're going through. Everything is changing. So there's no consistency in the pattern. And as much as there is so much more of the old still being reflected, it is just holding on threads, the fumes, whatever you want to call it, because it doesn't have the same capacity and power and capabilities as it had before. Everything has been tuned up, revved up right now when it comes to mass media. This whole pandemic thing, whatever else that you want to call it, whatever was plugged in, it is being reinforced because that is kind of a last resort to saying, well, push, push, push. There's two narratives to that. One being, we'll push, push, push to reflect and keep the old world and then make things smaller so that we can slow things down. But the other part is, we'll push, push, push so that we can get to the point of realization that we've lived in a small box or a limited version of ourselves and say, we're done with playing the limited version of ourselves. This whole thing about not having enough resources or enough of anything at this point in time for us to really flourish in life is all made up. It's all concoction. But the thing is, if we see it that way, then we cannot give power to fear. And if we don't give it power to fear, we can't base it on the past. And then we can't project it in the future. And then this bugger, automatic, whatever, is no longer effective. And guess what? We're going to evolve even faster. But we're already doing that. Look at it this way. We're in a position to have a blast, and that's what we're doing. We're having a blast, enjoying this resistance and last bit or ditch effort, whatever they call it, while we merge from the old to the new, and that we're enjoying the ride. So that when we're off the ride, when we're done with that part, we're basically saying, wow, that was amazing. Now I could see how much more powerful I am coming from that state, that reduced state, that polarized state, and so forth. Okay? Good. Let me take this all out. Clean the board. All right. Okay, so who is the one looking for confirmation and bases their reality accordingly? Yeah, you could say, I am, or you are. Who is looking for confirmation and bases their reality accordingly? Like I was saying, you're looking at the world and say, okay, how do I shape my day today? How do I shape my life today? Well, there's been no changes. Oh, wait a minute, they're coming in with the passport. Oh, they're coming in with this, they're coming in with that. I got to now shape my life around that. But who's that? Is it your overall consciousness? Is it your multidimensional soul or dimensional higher aspect of yourself? Is it your human entity? Is it your body? Or is it just that famous AI called the ego? The ego is going to put a lot of attention on confirmation. We got to confirm this change. We got to confirm that we're on the right track. We got to confirm that the fact that, we're not, creating these crazy ideas that are going to bite us in the ass later, or it's going to take us down this path that is no good. Confirmation is required because this is still accentuated. And many people put a lot of power into that one. If you really look at it, you unplug fear, you could see our old world collapse. Big time. Because fear of survival, fear that something's going to get us, fear that all hell's going to break loose, fear that, we will self-destruct or anything of that nature is still supporting and pumping up our old world. This is why you see what people call fear porn or fear accentuation, fear as a main diet from every source. Because fear has been made to have massive amount of power, massive amount of capacities for us. And the other thing, it's just something I know I've talked about this before. I don't know when, the last time. But if we stop streaming fear, say for 30 days, you will see how big of a leap we will take. You will see how much power or lack of that our systems and structures will have. Systems being legal, being monetary, being governmental, medical, educational, religious, you name it. All of it starts to fade. The fact is, fear is not natural, and because of these higher vibration, it requires a lot of stimulation, a lot of reinforcement to actually stay intact. Go ahead.
Okay, Nicola is asking, feeling lots of intense energies lately and feeling quite low the last day or so. Abandonment seems to be the flavor. Any advice on how to shift this now?
Yes. So the energies, we keep getting one wave after another. Okay? Some waves will impact some people more than others. Because the waves of frequencies that are coming in, the energies that are coming in, will have some specific purpose. And some of us may have areas where that particular energy will stir up old parts of you. So, the fact of, what did you say, abandonment?
Yeah.
Okay. So, the whole thing about abandonment coming up, because abandonment is an old program. It's a very low vibrational state in that inverted world. So guess what's happening? For you, in this particular time, it's slowing you down and it's giving you the opportunity to experience the abandonment. So what do I recommend? Recognize it, acknowledge it, write it out, what it looks like, how it feels, anything and all descriptive factors of this whole abandonment that's coming up for you, where it has shown up in your life, or at least confirmations of it. Because again, it's an illusion, but there's certain experiences may have happened, certain interaction that may have happened, or certain environment that may have played out for you that may have reinforced and brought it to the surface. Because again, understanding, first and foremost, you can write at the top of the paper that the abandonment is just a program. It's just a story. It is not real. Write that at the top of the paper. Then below it, I'm experiencing abandonment. And the abandonment looks this way for me. I feel left alone. I feel that in some way or another I'm not being supported, feeling that this or that, whatever it is. And then after that, you write down confirmational parts that you've had, confirmational experiences that reinforce the abandonment. I was left home alone. I did not have anybody I can talk to, or whatever. I'm just giving you examples. These are just examples. Write down where it was reinforced. Okay? Then after you've done that, when you've written all of that stuff, already it starts to change the dynamic, especially if you look at the top line at the first thing that it's all made up anyways. But at the same time, you look at it and say, okay, great. Ask yourself, do I want to experience abandonment? Because if I do, that's okay. I'm going to sit with it and feel it. Many of us resist. Let's stay with the abandonment. We'll resist the uncomfortableness that abandonment may bring up. So you say, okay, abandonment's coming up. I welcome you. Come on in. Give it to me. Let's experience it. Allow yourself to be there. Allow yourself to feel it. Allow yourself to intensify that. But at the same time, as it's intensifying, I acknowledge you. I thank you and I love you. That's all you keep saying. I acknowledge you. I thank you. I love you. As it's intensifying, you'll see it starts to shift. Okay? Then what you want to write down, okay, because all of those, the first parts that you wrote were all the acknowledgement. Then find as many reasons to thank it. The abandonment has made me realize this or that. And be in appreciation, because everything is just an experience. Keep this in mind. Write it down. Everything is just an experience. Illusionary otherwise, it's just an experience. There's no right, no wrong, no good or bad about it. It's just an experience. So you thank it. Thank you for making me feel abandoned. Thank you. When I was feeling abandoned, I felt alone. I felt disempowered. I felt it was unfair. I felt all of this. Great experience. Awesome. I'm appreciative. I'm so thankful that I got to experience that. It's no different than going on a roller coaster ride. Without going on the ride, you wouldn't have experienced it. So you got to experience abandonment. And write as many as possible of opportunities of thankfulness for the abandonment. And then blast it with love. I love you. I love your abandonment, and so forth. You'll see that the dynamics of all of that will start to weaken. And then you could just say, okay, I'm done with the abandonment. I love you and everything else. I'm going to just put you in the field. The field is all around you. Go ahead.
Yeah, she just wrote, I see you, I love you, I free you.
Perfect. Perfect.
I have another question.
Okay.
So let me just. Oh, it's gone.
Change your mind. Okay. It's back? Nope. Okay. All right. So, we're always going back. Not always. At this time, it's the ego. Likes to use fear that says, hey, we need confirmation and we'll base our reality accordingly. I'm not taking a step until I know for sure. I'm not thinking, oh, forget about this envisioning. No, 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 no. We got to look at the world. What's reality? What's real? Well, reality is just a reflection of what we've collectively, but is it real? No, but we can adopt it and think that it's real, feel that it is real, and so forth at this point in time. Get your head out of the clouds. What's the other one? Get real, or whatever it is. Look at the way the life is. Anybody that's made progress, even in the inverted world, has done what? They've had to step forward. They didn't give credence to the story or narratives or whatever you want to call it that was projecting out at that time. Didn't put any focus on that. All right. Let's remove that. Let's see what else we got here. What happens to us? Oops. Time to put another screwy board up. What did I just do?
You did that one already, didn't you?
Yeah, I think I went backwards instead.
Yeah, I think so. We're only at,
There we go.
only at 6.
All right, now I can scribble on it. So what happens to us when we focus on the narrative and what is going on currently? We talked about it already. It lowers our frequency. It activates the ego because it gives it support. We stimulate fear even though it's not part of our operating system. It limits our capacity to see beyond the narrative. It almost doesn't even, it comes to such a layer that it actually shifts what we're looking at and gives it not only more power, but what we imagine seems less plausible or real. It really alters us in a big way. People don't recognize or realize how much it changes us. It does tremendous amount of change within ourselves because of what it plays out. So when you really look at it, the more you focus on it, on the narrative and what's going on currently, the more it inhibits your movement forward. People are saying, how do we move forward? How do we change the world? First of all, accept the world the way it is. I love you. I thank you. I see you great. But now we are going to upgrade it because that is my expression. That is my fulfilled aspect of myself. I am now shaping the world to match what we are stepping into personally and collectively. Anybody that's been in the renovating of their house, they look at the house that needs renovation and they say, okay, that's, oh man, this is terrible, and judge it or whatever it is. Or it's going to look at it and say, okay, let's see what we can create, what we can change. Oh yeah, we'll upgrade the kitchen, we'll upgrade the bathrooms, we'll, paint it, we'll remove the floors or replace the floors. Yeah, we're going to change the outside, we're going to do some landscape, we're going to do, and what are we doing? We're redesigning it. We're bringing it to our taste. We're bringing it to our imagination, our creativity. That's just an example. Your life is the same thing. You're going in renovation. You're not going to look at where it's at and say, okay, let's take all these parts out that no longer serve me. Yeah, it might have been okay for 50 years. It may have been okay for 10 years or whatever it is. But now what are we going to do with that? We're going to upgrade it. Okay. Oops. All right. So what happens when we focus? That's the same thing. Let's bring another one. Okay. Why is there so much focus on the old world? We talked about it. Why? because we got conditioned and trained to look at the old world as what is our real world. You did not come on here to the planet to experience the old world for your journey. You came here to experience it, to understand it, to look at the possibilities, and that then has already started, and say, okay, I got a good idea how this works. I'm going to now do a complete overhaul of the physical experience, what we call the human experience, and the world. So why is there so much focus on the old world? It's basically designed, we've kind of collectively designed to say, well, we're going to hold on to that for what reason? To keep the old world. And this is why it's feeling uncomfortable, because it does not match us any longer. Go ahead, Kimberly.
Question. Just a second. Where I lost it.
You lost that
Lost
too?
it. Just a minute. I'm sure it's here. Okay. Is it possible to ask if Lush fed demons left planet and fear frequencies got free? And I just wanted to point out that perhaps we shouldn't be even putting our attention on those things. That's part of to me, a distraction as well, in being concerned about that, because as soon as we put our attention back onto that kind of thing, it's the same as putting your attention on a mainstream media narrative that also it's you know, it's okay to know things, but I think that we have to some point let go and just be who we are and know that everything will come out the way it needs to come out based on our interaction, our response, our actions, and what we do to bring out the best in ourselves and live from our heart space.
Okay. So all the so-called lower frequency aspects of ourselves, or energies and so forth, entities, you name it, a lot of them have already been purged, especially the very low. In fact, we've gone through upgrades where we can't go as low anyways. And I talked about it in several episodes ago. So if you look back some of the episodes, I don't remember which episode it was, that we went through that sequence where we basically eliminated the lowest band. And by doing so, we're not feeding it any longer. And anything that required the fueling to be able to play that role have been leaving. So in fact, they are no longer existing. There are still ones that are low, but not as low as before. So what people call the darkest demons or whatever else, and that's just a label of lower frequency, lower disconnect consciousness of sorts, have been cleared because of the fact that we have raised such a fashion to be able not to support them any longer. And not only is Gaia, at this point in time, because a lot of them were residing in the underground sort of thing. Even Gaia's vibration raising made it very difficult to be sustainable there. And then our vibration, doesn't matter how much fear is being projected. I don't know if you pay attention to it. I don't know, Kimberly, if you've paid attention to it. But when you really look at it, the level of fear, the hystericalness, the hysteria that we would have once experienced from a collective perspective is not there to the same degree. You've noticed that even the fear hasn't been able to lower us low as it was before. In fact, the fear of life and all that it represents in that lower band is no longer accessible because it has been purged. So as much as we still play with fear, we're not lost to the same degree, and we're not going to the level of unconsciousness as before. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, for myself, I just really, in regards to anything like that, or anything to attach to you or anything, it's like really just holding your vibrancy, your light, your your love. And when you're holding that space and you're staying in that frequency and this is what I've been doing for the last while, not looking at any of the other stuff. I mean, I'm aware of what's going on, but I'm not actively seeking out information online or anything like that. And I feel so much lighter, and I feel it's so much easier to hold the space I want to hold, because I'm able to stay consistently focused on my own light, my own frequency, my own what I carry within me, the wisdom within me that I can keep expanding on. So if I'm always dipping into something else or looking at other stuff that is frequency lowering, then it is going to be really difficult to maintain that for yourself. And so when you keep dipping down, it allows other things to come into your reality and to mess around.
Yeah, exactly. So the thing is, even the so-called lower vibrational entities and so forth, they require us to go into a lower state for them to even participate. So a lot of people saying, well, we got to clear our space, we got to clear ourselves and whatever. The easiest way to clear yourself is just maintain that higher frequency. If we're using, say, what do they call it? Addictions of some sort that use lowering substances like alcohol and whatever else, or even, watching or being exposed to lower frequencies that actually stimulate fear and so forth. When we lower our frequencies in that, then they can engage. So the point is, you want to maintain that higher frequency, not through fear, but in a sense of seeing and feeling that light that you are, because you already are high frequency. We just lower ourselves, or convinced to use that lower part. So like Kimberly was saying, you're not focusing in all of that narrative and whatever else. Your frequency stays up. The more you're disconnected from that, your natural state of higher frequency comes into play. Now, if you do need an extra bit of support, use the breath to kind of quieten your mind in, and then call in your body, your soul. Say, hey, soul, multidimensional soul, fully embody. Activate my home frequency, the highest home frequency throughout. Align with my body, my human entity, my soul, my overall consciousness we call the mind. Create an alignment, increase it. Then you can ask yourself and say, okay, I am source spirit. I now activate the highest version, the highest source spirit frequency within myself, and to also align mind, body, soul, human entity. And then creating that beautiful energy, and then just breathing and being present with that energy within yourself. And that already creates a shift in you. And anything that is a lower frequency actually starts to purge away from you, because it's very uncomfortable. It cannot function within that state within yourself. And it doesn't matter how low you are in the sense of going through maybe a challenge that may have triggered and brought you into a perpetual pattern of lower, scary, fear-based thoughts or anything of that nature. Always just say, okay. So you just focus on the breathing, feel that whole breath in and out, getting involved with the beautiful rhythm of the breath in and out. And then you say, okay, without fear and without saying, please, please, or anything like that, I now call in my soul to fully embody, align with my body, my human entity, my mind, fully embody, activating my home frequency to the highest degree that I can sustain within this body right now. And just say that, and just continue focusing on the breath. And then you just say, okay, my spirit essence, I now call in and activate within myself the highest version of myself, the highest version and also the highest vibrational frequency of my source essence, to be fully aligned with my body, my human entity, my soul, and my mind at this point in time. And then just focus on the breathing. You will also notice a shift within yourself, and a lot of the things that you're changing, we're experiencing, starts to change. And of course, you want to look at what brought you there. You want to write all that stuff down. Go ahead.
And it's not like cutting yourself off from people that inspire you. I still listen to stuff that I'm inspired by. But that's the only stuff I'll listen to now.
Correct.
And And that helps me as well to maintain what I want to maintain. And, because we did just do that big workshop, and there's lots of great information that if you're listening to it over again, then it will help you to stay in the space you want to stay in.
Absolutely.
And do the exercises if stuff comes up. It's just really staying in the focus that you want to be in. It really is time for being there and doing that, and releasing every distractions.
Well, yeah, and the thing is, instead of immersing yourself and focusing on the narratives, what you're going to focus is on things that actually stimulate you, stimulate in the sense of the true essence of you, things that remind you, that confirm in you your true essence, your true power or empowered state, the true you as source, essence, spirit, designer, creator that you are. This is the thing. So you're basically you're shifting away from all of this, the old world, all the narratives, all the possibility of what's happening or going on currently to stimulate. So content of like the series here, the podcast, the workshops, all of these things, and this is only one channel of information because there's other shows and so forth, but there are others also sharing that actually uplift you. And when I say uplift you, really the uplifting is just triggering your own memory, your own knowing. It's assisting you to access your own higher vibrational states. And when you're doing that, all of this other stuff really now doesn't have the same effect and actually ends up going out of the range of accessibility. I find that I also have to spend time to listen to my own stuff at times because it kind of keeps my vibration higher in the sense of whatever's going on, that I stay crystal clear or clearer at different times. So in fact, the immersing, and it's not just the one time when you're re-listening to it, re-empowers you, hear even more and so forth, but that's only just reminding you who you are, what capacities you have, and so forth. Okay? So why is there so much focus on the old world? It's just to maintain the old world. But the question is, what will you lose? This is the question you have to ask yourself. If you let go of the old world, what are you going to lose? It's a good question to ask yourself. What are you going to lose by letting go of the old world? Are you going to lose friends? Are you going to lose family? You're going to lose partners? You're going to lose material stuff that you may have gained? Are you going to lose your bearings of the old world? Are you going to lose what you perceive, or many of us have perceived, all my invested times, all my invested labels, all those, saying this is who I am? You lose yourself. Because sometimes we say we lose ourselves. But are we losing ourselves? No. We're losing the versions of ourselves that were never truly ourselves. You never lose your true self. You discover your true self. Your true self comes more to the surface. You're losing the adopted version of yourself that was never yourself, but it was a self that you adopted to play a particular role. So are you ever losing anything? No. Because what you're losing is gaining much more powerfully your trueness, your real empowered essence of who you are. But a lot of times we have a lot of stuff associated. What will I lose? I lose people. I lose stuff. I lose my label of who I am. Even when it comes to people, you're not going to lose anybody that's not to be in your life. The relationship may change, and then if the ones that decide not to interact with you to the same degree or at all, that's fine, because now you are becoming more of your true essence. They're still playing where they're at, and you're going to have others show up that will align with you, that will work with you at these higher vibrational states and accessing higher consciousness. So really, it's not about losing anything. It's about gaining your truest self. Gaining your true self. Because you know that your true self That's the part that you came here to express and experience. The true self is what is the builder, designer, creator of this new world. It's the one that's going to unpack it, unfold it, give it color, give it life, give it realism, and to be able to express the true human experience. So that's what you're gaining. You're not losing. You're losing the old. You're losing the old. The old labels, old definitions, old parts of you. Many of us that have gone through those changes, when you experience it and say, I am so glad I left those versions of me. Because what happens is, you're letting go of versions of yourself that doesn't feel comfortable, natural for you. You may have played the game before and you were totally into it, but no longer into it now. All right? Okay, let's get rid of that. Okay. Oops. So, that's not going to make me write on there anyway. So, I better put my film. Are you ready to let go of your old world? Question. Kimberly, are you ready to let go of your old world?
Absolutely.
Okay. Have you already left layers of it?
Absolutely.
There you go.
Especially in the last while.
So this is the question. You have to ask yourself, am I ready to let go of the old world? Am I ready to let go of what I perceive the world to be? Am I ready to let go of all my aspects of myself? Am I ready to let go of whoever was involved in those aspects? And the letting go a lot of times is freeing it, setting it free, and let it come as it needs to come, instead of holding on. What's that statement? Set it free, and what's true? Oh, you screwed up. Okay, you're just as good as I am in that. If it's meant to be, it will come back in its pure form. But setting it free is what you're doing. You're setting free yourself. You're setting free of others. You're setting free of your old world. And then you can create the new world, and a newer version of anybody or anything like that will show up as it's most beneficial for the dance that you choose to have. All right. Let's see what else we got here. All right. We'll find an easier way to do this. Okay. Change comes about when we take an active role in seeing the world within as the world around us. Does that make any sense to you?
Yes. It does. Makes perfect sense.
Perfect. Good. Can you kind of explain that one? Because I have no idea what I just put there. I'm just kidding you, but go ahead. You can share.
Well, for me, when I'm going within, and that's where my focus primarily is on the expansiveness of myself, an excitement shows up and a lightness shows up, and then I'm creating from that world within me, and it's very expanding and very liberating and feels very free.
Exactly. So it's exactly as it said. Change comes about when we take an active role in seeing the world within. We all have a world within. We've always felt it from the moment you arrived on the planet. You already had this vision in you. Of course, the vision is upgraded along the way, but you've always known this true world within yourself. It was the organic world. You already knew it. Even though we went through the whole programming to experience an inorganic, non-functional, inverted world for a period of time, but it's that. So it's a matter of seeing that world within. And this is why the visualization, bringing yourself and seeing the world shape around you. Not of the old construct, but the most purest, with no limits, no putting in and say, oh, this may be possible and not possible. That's just the ego's intervention in there. Everything is possible and may not roll out totally 100% immediately, but that becomes part of the co-collaborative, cooperative design of the playground. So by seeing it within you as the world around you. So whatever you see you see around you. So you're actually projecting that vision. So no matter what's going on, you see the world as you choose to see it. You use that terminology all the time. So go ahead.
You don't even have to necessarily see it a certain way. It's a feeling. It's like, and this is something I've been practicing more and more, is if you have the feeling of who you truly are and understand that, then the world automatically rearranges to create based on what you are projecting as a feeling, based on yourself, of who you are inside. So it's not even, you don't even have to have a particular vision in place, because some of us have a hard time with that. Even so, if you just are focusing on the truth of who you are, the love of who you are, and understanding the power you possess, just holding that, then your world rearranges around that. That
Exactly.
is how your world starts recreating around you. So
Yeah.
it's a very powerful action.
Exactly. So we have multiple screens within the screen. So when you're seeing the world within, you're already changing the focal point of your own personal screen to be very, very reflective. And doesn't matter which one of these are active, they're all interactive. So in fact, they're all going to stimulate every layer of it. So this is the thing, is that as you're focusing or experiencing yourself, you're actually changing. This is why people notice. You may have had this experience numerous times, or maybe once only, or whatever, and maybe you haven't yet, but to some degree, everybody's already seen that depending on the state that you're in, how you see the world. Like if you're having an awesome day, you wake up and you feel amazing, your world is very different. Your interactions with people are very different. The way they communicate with you, what you see, what aligns and doesn't align, is very different than a day that you're not having a good day. Because the day you're having not a good day, what we label as a not a good day, at that point in time, the world looks not only very different for you, the interactions with other people is very different, all the layouts of everything, how it plays out is very different. And it's very reflective to that lower state that you may be experiencing that day. So by bringing that inner part of ourselves, that inner world, it actually shapes our immediate reality and interactions with others. And that is also not only streaming the bigger picture, or that what we call the more collective, cooperative, or collaborative, co-created screen, but it starts off with your immediate reality. So that's the thing, is that many of us have already seen that you have a good day, bad day. I'm just using this as your example because that's how we tend to have labeled it before. And depending on how you feel for that day, it really shapes your reality around you. Like I said, your interactions, people that you connect with, what plays out, what works out. Because sometimes you start off on a chain of, having a so-called what we labeled as bad day, and then we have a lot of things that play out that would, not only reinforce that, but also create different levels of restrictions. Okay. Okay. What does that look like? I'm going to see what the other one is. Okay. So what does that look like? What does that world inside of you look like? This is where you do an exercise. And the exercise is, you focus on the breath, you quieten the mind, you can go through the whole thing of activating or bringing in your soul, saying, I fully embody my soul, activate home frequency, do the spirit, my spirit essence or my source essence, activate the highest source essence. And then, even if you don't do all of that, if you're feeling good anyways, at that point, just envision that world. And the exercise is write it out, what that looks like. how you interact, what shapes around you, how it actually feels, because Kimberly says that a lot. How does it feel? Feel the excitement it brings. The more excitement, just accentuate it. See what else you can plug in to make it more exciting. So you write it all out and experience it through the feeling aspect of yourself. So as you're envisioning it, feel it. Describe the feelings. Because the reason you're writing it out, it reinforces it by writing it out, but at the same time you can access that to remind you more powerfully your capability and capacities at that point. So that's the exercise. What does it look like? You go through the exercise and write out what it looks like, how it feels, what your relationships may look like, how you maneuver through things, how your world looks like, where there is no possible survival, no struggle, no fear, you're flourishing, where you're connecting not only with people, with yourself, with nature, with all the sentient beings, the environment, and everything else. How you maneuver yourself, how you experience yourself in that environment, that whatever that may be and what it looks like for you. Then you can also look at it, how do I share this? How do I live this? How do I experience this in form? How do I experience it? And write all that out. And that actually makes it more crystal clear and gives more life to it, and it gives the chemistry, the building materials from that source field or that spirit creator field to make that much more real for you. So write that down. What does it look like? What is the most important action you could take at this time? I don't know, Kimberly, what is the most important action we can take at this time?
Going within, honey. As you know, that's what I'll say.
Going within.
Really putting your
I
focus
don't agree
there.
with you. Sorry.
You don't, eh?
No, I think we should look at the outside world and say, oh boy, we're in trouble.
Because everything happens from within. So that's
Exactly.
the most important action at this point.
Yeah.
Especially in a world that's still doing whatever it's got to do.
So, what's the most important thing? Like Kimberly said, you connect within. You envision it, you feel it, and you express it. And your expression is shifting, working with your environment, with what you have available to plug in as much as that excitement, as much as that realism within yourself from what you've tuned in within. So you start to shape your reality, whatever you have at your means. Anything that reflects the old, you want to write it out, look at it, appreciate it, thank it, love it, whatever, and let it go. Go ahead, you were going to say something?
And you're infusing all that inside love stuff that you have. You're infusing it in your day, in every action that you do. You do everything with a smile on your face and just infuse yourself into your day, no matter what you're doing. Nothing's, too small to be infusing with love.
Yeah, exactly. And love equates to fun, joy, and so forth. I mean, we're here to play. It's key. Play. Through play, you experience. Through play, you evolve. Through play, you become more enlightened. Through play, you become more enriched. Where does the play start from? Within. Through our imagination, our creativity. Be playful. I'm sure as kids at one point in time you used your imagination to play a reality of some sort. Saying, okay, I'm imagining myself this or that. Use that. Plug in as much of it that feels natural in your experience. Start to shape it in such a fashion. So what I mean is you put your attention into it and see how I can mold it and bring it in as part of my experience along the way. So that's the most important. Now the other part that's important in all of this is unplugging yourself from the narrative. Unplugging yourself from all that is being projected. Unplugging yourself from the old world and what reminds you of the old world, the reminder of your old you. Yes, if it comes up, you're going to write it out, go through the whole process we talked about earlier. And I would strongly recommend that you listen to this episode and some other ones repeatedly, because it, a lot of us say, well, how do I make change? How do I make change? Well, have you taken any steps? Like, okay, you're listening to all of this, you're reminding yourself, but are you going to take the steps? Are you going to do something with it? That's the question. Are you going to do something? Are you going to take active action right now? Because that's the important to take action in what you're reminding yourself, what you're learning here, which is really just a reminder. Okay? And like I said, you unplug from everything that's that inverted world. You can still see it, but you're not going to give it realism. You're not going to let it dictate or shape your life. Passport or no passport. It's like, yeah, that doesn't fit in my reality, so I'm not going to even give it power. Whoever wants to play there can have a blast. I'm okay with whatever they do. They're just versions of myself. They're in different stages. And yes, they'll do whatever they need to do. Do I choose to participate there? No. But you're not doing it with fear. You're doing it with excitement. And if you see it as play, you see it as a game. That's the other part. See it as a game, because that's what it is. This is a very elaborate video game. If you see it as a game, it becomes, look at it this way. When you're playing and when you see it as a game, your resources of imagination, creativity, flexibility really elevates. And when you're engaged in the game and having fun, have fun in the game, it elevates even further. It really expands you, because that's your natural state. It expands you. It brings excitement, adventure, and a raring of, let me go play. Let me see what I can do. And look at it right now. The amount of restrictions we have. Can you imagine putting fun in it? Going into play, see it as a game, how much change and advancements you could make? You really emphasize creativity and imagination, bringing that world to a level that you've never experienced before. You were going to say something?
I was just going to say to try the experiment of taking yourself offline, like, listen to what you need to listen to that's inspiring, but try it for a week or a couple days, whatever you think you can do, and see how it changes how you feel. Unplug from all those other medias that aren't serving you in any way. Even try the unplugging from TV. Now, well, that's a hard one too. Yeah, but if you can unplug from them first, try it for a week if you can, and take notes of how you feel by the end of the week. Do you really notice the change, and what do you have more access to as a result of unplugging from that? So then shift your attention to maybe do more meditations, or go for walks, or whatever else is a high vibe activity that's going to support you. Try it for a week, and then see how it changes your life in some way, because sure it will.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. See, we say, okay, I'm going to still watch TV, I'm going to watch movies, I'm going to shows. But you have to understand, a lot of all of this stuff here was all created in that inverted world, supports that inverted world, still supports fear, still projects a limitation or a limited version of ourselves and so forth. So like Kimberly was saying, if you unplug yourself from anything that is a reflective of the old world, and you give yourself time to meditate, you give yourself to expose yourself to content of this nature, which really stimulates, reminds you, and keeps you on track on progress, you will see how quickly how you feel will change, How you experience life will change. Your possibilities will expand. Your stuckness will change. Your patterns not only will be exposed but will dissolve. All of this will happen much more quickly if we're not being bombarded or focusing on all of that stuff that is there. If you really need to know, you will have it show up from one means or another. But the thing is, choose to focus yourself with yourself and then use any other resources that will reflect the higher aspect of yourself, like this content and otherwise, to be able to kind of stimulate the progress that you're making and reinforce something outside of what everything else that's been reflective. So it's really, really, really important. That's one of the important things. And like Kimberly was saying, if you unplug from all of this stuff for a period of time, it's going to shift you in such a fashion that it'll be surprising in a way to you. Because the thing is, everything is energetically supporting for us not to focus on this. And it's just that we're just creating the conflict and creating a reminder of the old versions of ourselves. Okay. How much power do we have to reshape and change our world? That's the other one. Okay. So the question is, how much power do we have to reshape and change our world? A lot of people feel, I'm powerless. It's just me. What can I possibly do? Did you ever hear that before, Kimberly? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She doesn't have her mic on, so I have to repeat that. Mm-hmm. Okay. You hear that all the time. We feel it a lot of times. And when I say feel it, from an emotional feeling, I'm helpless. What am I going to do? Look at the world. The world's not going to change. But really, you need to understand, you are beyond powerful than you have been able to allow yourself to imagine or to know. Some of you are realizing how powerful you are. Just glimpse of it, but it's coming more online. Go ahead, Kimberly.
I'm just going to read a couple comments here. Jenna was saying, I think there is a cortisol adjustment period of time that happens when you unplug fully. And Melissa, in response, said, good point, Jen. There is an addiction to certain neurochemicals that are produced in response to certain stimuli. Good to recognize this and honor our process of acclimating to more natural vibes.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. So a lot of our addictions, even with what we consume on a physical perspective and so forth, will affect and will not only, like I was showing the TV and everything else that was going on and everything else that we're stimulating, but you have to understand our body chemistry and everything else that's playing out within ourselves is very much directed by where our focus is and what we put our attention on and what is stimulating us in one way or another. We change very powerfully by just shifting our attention from the old part of you to the new part of you. So those are great statements that were made and a good observation from it. So just pay attention to what you're gravitating to and how it actually feels when it's true nature of how it feels. How much does it support that higher state of yourself? So it's not only just isolating what's in, but also to look at some of the substances that you're consuming and whatever else and the chemistry that is kind of calling it for, because it has created a dependency for us to be exposed to that at one way or another. Go ahead.
Amanda's just asking, is it our ego that is addicted?
Well, Kimberly, what is the answer to that?
I would say yes, it's the
Yeah.
ego that's addicted, but then it pulls the body into it too.
Well, you know, the ego is a software program, and it creates a certain reality. The ego controls our emotions, controls our pattern, because we've given it that much power. So it draws us to low vibrational exposures to not only what we see, what we feel, what we induce or take in physically. and it also alters how we feel physically. It can drain us because it can put a focus on a certain state, and it can feel energetically draining. It can change the chemistry in our bodies. So the established addiction is the story that ego provides, and then the body aligns to it. The body is very flexible, but if you don't give it that much power to it, then those addictions change because the body steps into its true innate consciousness, and it will actually purge those requirements, or what was perceived as requirements, and even the side effects as you go through the withdrawal, because the withdrawal is not required at that point in time. So it does. They all work hand in hand. It's all interconnected. So the ego does extend right into the body and how it feel. Now, when I'm talking about feel, there's emotional feel, and so emotional feel, and then there is a knowing feel. Emotional. I'm not going to have enough space there. Whatever.
Okay, you're almost done.
Almost done. Emotional feel. Because a lot of people equate feeling. They say, well, I feel this way. Well, emotional feeling is polarized. Emotional feeling feels good, bad, and so forth. Emotional feeling can impede in many ways and make you feel in such a way where it may stop you or something of that nature. True feeling is like that knowing feeling. It is the knowing that is complete. It's all through you. It's not terrorizing you. It's not making you feel good, bad, right, wrong, or impeding you in any way. It's just very nurturing. It's like because happy and sad are both emotional feelings. Those are concocted and played out with the ego and the all the programs and patterns and so forth. Where true feeling is a knowing, that feeling of knowing. It's a very natural feeling, energizing state. Go ahead.
Can you just someone's asking, can you just remind who or what is running the ego? It's like an AI program, right?
Yes. So right now, it's depending. Okay. So what was running the ego was the inverted matrix. And what was running the inverted matrix and the ego itself was the transmitter we called the moon. The moon was a transmitter transmitting that inverted matrix and also stimulating, upgrading the ego, which is pure software with instructions. That's all been turned off. The transmitter's gone, or not gone, it's still there, but it's not transmitting any longer. The inverted matrix was unplugged. Now it's stimulating it. It's the reflection of the old world. So every time we're exposing ourselves to what reminds us of the old world, that's still feeding the ego, saying, okay, we got backup, we can use this. The other part is ego supporting ego. So you're going to have people kind of playing with each other to stimulate each other's ego. So that's keeping it alive. So it's really the old world reflection, the old inverted world reflection that is stimulating the ego, and other egos playing with each other at this point in time is the only resources that's keeping ego going. But ego has established programs and has established patterns. So whenever we're going through these patterns, it is actually reinforcing it, and it's also qualifying it or quantifying its functionality. And then the more we give power to it by getting caught up in it, then we're still keeping it somewhat alive. Go ahead.
Olga's asking how ego connected to universal electric and magnetic energy.
Sorry, read that again?
She's asking how ego is connected to universal electric and magnetic energy.
Well, everything is electric and magnetic in the sense. So everything functions in that. So when it was written, put together, it used a certain part of that electrics and magnetics to be able to function it. So it's like a computer. You can put a software in there, but it needs the base operating system, and it also needs the functionality of the computation or the computing power of the computer itself to be able to operate that software. So with these higher frequencies coming in, the magnetics is changing, the electric frequencies are changing, so that the ego's software is not being supported to the same degree any longer. This is why it's losing its capacities to function. There's more malfunction and less support in its functionality, because it's coming out. Everything that we're exposing ourselves to is limiting the range, and so that's why there's a higher dependency to trigger each other, to polarize each other, so that we are creating a falsified or a superimposed lower magnetic field and frequency of electric to be able to sustain itself. So the old world is still reflecting that, and it's creating a change enough to still be electrified and magnetified to be able to function. Okay. We're good? Okay. So how much power do we have to reshape? Like I said, amazing amount of power. Did you know you have the key? You have the key to change everything. You came with the key. You have a good part of the combination, because all of us have a key part of the combination. Now, of course, the active ones have more of the codes of it, to be able to unpack, unfold, activate the organic 3D, 5D state, to bring that new world into life in its vibrancy. Go ahead.
I was going to say, aren't we the keys?
Of course
We
we're
are
the
the
keys.
key.
We are the keys. I think that's it. That was the last thing. Okay. So I'm just going to put a layer on top of that to really emphasize this. You have the key, and like Kimberly said, you are the key. You came being the key. This is why you have interest in this. This is why you're working on yourself to polish, activate that key more clearly, so that the key can be utilized more effectively. And this is the reason that no matter what's going on, we're really coming to the realization that we are the key. You are the key to change your life, to change your reality, and also the key to bring this new world to life, so that you can actually experience yourself with all aspects of yourself, because everybody on the planet is another aspect of yourself. Every sentient being, including Gaia, is another aspect of yourself. Go ahead.
Okay, we have one question. We probably should have asked, but I didn't see it until now.
Okay.
Before the last. Anyways, Lena is asking, they turn off the moon off, but we have many places from where all low vibrations coming from. Underground, TV, phones, computers, 5G. How is it becoming less?
Well, like I was saying earlier, because of the vibrations that are increasing, there's several. Gaia's frequency is raising very highly. The sun's transmission is increasing very highly. The frequencies, all the energetic portals and interdimensional states of consciousness and so forth that are coming in are raising it even further. We are accentuating. Our vibration frequencies are going. Our consciousness and accessibility, our sourceness is increasing. So it is actually weakening all of the other sources. The other sources coming from the undergrounds, coming in from like you were saying, the cellular and everything that we were exposed. It's having less and less impact. Even the so-called 5G and so forth may only impact when we're in the lower frequency, but is not impactful to the same degree as your vibration increasing. So at this point in time, that is, it's like, how much darkness could I bring into a room? And I'm just using this as an analogy here. How much darkness can I bring into the room if the light keeps increasing? The darkness is not noticeable. It becomes less and less noticeable because the light is increasing. I'm just using it as an analogy. As our vibrations are increasing, the lower frequencies are not being supported, and then a lot of that stuff, we're not even in the range to be able to utilize any part of that. So hopefully I've explained it. Can you add 2 cents to that, or is that it?
No, what you said makes perfect sense.
You are the key. You are the key. All of you. So I can relax now because I know you guys are going to take over and shape everything as I observe. I'm going to sit in my easy chair and just watch.
Yay.
Yay. Kimberly does not believe me at all.
Not even a bit.
Of course not. Okay. We're all in it together. We're playing together. We gather together to support each other. But the supporting is not because we're carrying each other. We're kind of reminding each other. We're sharing with each other to really bring higher aspects of ourselves online even more powerfully so that we are just even more effective in what we are here to do. Okay.
So I'm thinking that maybe the next call, the next episode may be a Q&A.
Okay.
What do you think?
What do I think?
Yeah.
Right now, it sounds like a good idea.
Yeah.
If it changes in any way, we'll let you know. But
Yeah,
I think
so
we'll aim for...
lots of questions come up, and we can't possibly answer them all, or we'd be. But keep your questions, and when we do have it, if it's next week, then ask them then.
Okay. All right. So, guys, that's it. I think we've got everything covered here that we wanted to cover. I'm just going to remove that layer and voila. Just going to bring it back to where it was. There's got to be an easy way to do this. I'll figure it out. It's something I'm learning. Okay. So moving beyond the narrative to experience real change. Main factor. You got your answer. That's how it works. So go out and have a blast. Until next time. So, if this work resonates and you'd like to support us, please feel free to contribute. We highly appreciate it. It's not a mandatory. It's from your own heart. I really like to thank everybody that has supported us along the way. It has allowed us to be able to continue doing this, and we're expanding even further. We're going to be doing even more and sharing even more as we go along. There's a lot of things in the works that we are putting together. As you've noticed, I mean, besides the episodes, the podcasts, and even though the podcasts haven't been as regular, it will become more regular. But there's a lot more shows and interaction. There's a lot of different things that are being shared to support you. And if you support us, we just can stay more focused on that. If you missed the last workshop that we had a weekend or so ago, it wasn't last weekend, the weekend before, that you can access. It's in the description, and Kimberly may put it in the comment section too if she wants. The workshop to get the video and audio recordings are all cleaned up and ready for you to go. If you want to check any of the other workshops that have been recorded and so forth, there is also a link that takes you to Teachable, and you can see that. If you want to join us on Let's Talk About You, which is a platform that we will have again another opportunity tomorrow night, where we meet up to, a couple of times a month, where we kind of share amongst each other and we cover various topics and so forth. You will see each other on the screen if you choose to show your picture of yourself or your video of yourself. If not, you get to listen and also ask questions or share your experiences. Other people who share your experiences, that's available also. And if you want to register to the newsletter, that way you will get notification of upcoming shows and other offers and so forth as we go along. And there's a summit going on right now, Accessing Your Bliss and so forth. We've sent out emails on that, and we also posted it on Facebook at this point in time. So, saying all of that, I was going to say one last thing, and I can't remember what that was right at the moment. So, do you remember, girl? I know you don't remember, but did I miss anything? I've covered everything possible. Yep. There was some hot button somewhere. I don't remember what it was, but yeah, the Zoology Festival. There's the early bird thing that's available right now.
Email with all that details.
Yes.
Go on the Zoology. There's a website. Is it just called Zoology Fest? I think.
Yeah, Zoology Fest. Zoology Fest. It's on 3 of my pages. Well, actually, all 5 pages. I think 4 or 5 pages.
That's
It's-
going to be a
it-
live event in the end of May.
The end of May in Arizona,
27th to the
Sedona,
30th, I
right?
think, yeah.
What's that?
27th to the 30th.
27th to the 30th, and might even cover the 31st at this point. And that might be the bonus. So.
We're hoping to be there.
Yeah, we're hoping to be there. We're in Canada, so for us, we have to cross the border, and that's been a bit of a challenge in a sense. But we're focusing on the world that is actually free for us to travel, so we will be able to have no resistance crossing the border. And yes, so feel free to share with others this content and also the serious part. Comment, subscribe, depending on whatever platform you are, follow, do whatever. So go out and have a blast, and I'm being cut off. So see you next time.